The cameras were supposed to be trained on Cody Brown, the man with 4 wives, a public persona, and a lifetime of fractured promises. But that morning in court, no one was looking at him. Every head turned toward the back of the room, toward a woman who stood slowly, cleared her throat, and spoke 12 words that froze the air. I was Cody's wife too. For 7 years. In secret. The courtroom didn't gasp. It didn't whisper. It stopped breathing. The judge leaned forward. The wives stiffened. Faces drained of color. And Cody didn't deny it. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. What followed was not simply a lawsuit. It was a slow, methodical dismantling of lies built over years, of silence enforced by manipulation, and of one woman's fight to finally be seen. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't seeking revenge. She wanted the truth entered into the record, sworn under oath, preserved forever. This wasn't tabloid gossip. This was a courtroom war. And when it ended, someone would walk out shattered. The courthouse itself felt altered that day. Old, but heavy, like ground about to be disturbed. A thin fog clung to the pavement outside, curling around camera lenses as if even nature hesitated to witness what was coming. Inside, the courtroom carried a different kind of weight, not just people, but tension. Not just tension, but fear. Then she entered. No one knew her name yet. But by the time this trial ended, everyone would. She didn't look like the caricature people expected.
No glamour. No dramatic makeup.
No performance. She wore black, professional, restrained, deliberate. Her posture was steady, her expression composed, but behind her eyes churned something violent and unresolved. Cody noticed her. He didn't wave, didn't whisper to his attorney. He simply blinked, like a man staring directly at a nightmare he once believed could never reach daylight. When liars finally come face to face with truth-carrying receipts, they don't panic. They calculate. And that's exactly what Cody was doing. Christine reacted first. Her jaw slackened, then tightened. Janelle remained still, studying Cody's face for cracks. Robin leaned toward him, whispered something urgently. He didn't respond. The woman reached the plaintiff's table and dropped a battered leather folder onto the surface. The sound landed harder than it should have. Contracts, emails, photographs. No one knew yet, but instinctively, everyone understood that nothing in that folder was harmless. The judge scanned the room, the way a mother watches children just before something breaks. Name for the record. The woman didn't hesitate. Nora Blake. The name carried no theatrics. Not yet. But behind it was an avalanche. She stated her case plainly. Breach of spiritual contract, emotional fraud, abandonment. The room didn't react, but the silence began to splinter. Robin's jaw clenched so tightly a vein pulsed in her neck. Cody finally spoke. Ridiculous. His attorney tried to stop him. Too late. Cody leaned back, arms crossed, wearing the same defensive calm viewers had watched for decades, the posture of a man who knows he's cornered but refuses to admit it. Nora chose to represent herself. That alone shifted the room. When she opened the folder, she did it slowly, intentionally. Inside were letters, receipts, photographs, and one document that made even Cody sit upright. A notarized spiritual marriage certificate, dated 7 years earlier. The judge examined it carefully. Silence spread like a pressure drop. You're saying you were spiritually married to Mr. Brown for 7 years? The judge asked, without the other wives' knowledge? Nora nodded once. Christine whispered that it was impossible. Robin snapped that it was a lie. The gavel struck. Order. Nora explained where she lived. The basement level. The West Building. There was no West Building on television. No basement wife in the blogs. But Christine's expression changed, recognition creeping in. The crying she'd heard at night. Lights flickering. The missing skillet. Things she had dismissed because believing otherwise felt unbearable. Nora testified that she hid because Cody told her to. That secrecy kept the family safe. Until the day he decided she no longer existed. When asked if anyone else knew, Nora didn't answer right away. She looked directly at Cody. You know who knew? Robin jolted forward. The judge cut her off. Nora promised evidence. Voicemails. Witnesses. Receipts. And then she smiled. Not smug. Not cruel.
Free.
The second day of court felt different. The fog was gone. The sun was out. But inside, Cody looked hollow. Rumpled suit. Jumping eyes. Robin trailed behind him, shaken. Christine sat ready. Janelle stood apart, arms crossed. Mary arrived last and sat beside Janelle instead of Cody. Nora testified again.
Calm.
Focused. She described how she was recruited, introduced by a so-called spiritual counselor. A man who said Cody needed a discreet fifth wife. Someone to heal the dynamic. Then the photograph appeared on screen. Nora and Cody, arm in arm, inside a Flagstaff rental familiar to viewers. Christine gasped. Janelle muttered the address. Robin whimpered. Nora described living in the house when the others were away.
Cleaning. Cooking.
Sleeping in the laundry room when guests arrived. Being told she wasn't ready for prime time. Then came the note. Handwritten. Dated Valentine's Day. Remain near. Remain silent. The courtroom erupted. Christine testified next. She spoke of crying through vents. A shadow in the yard at night. A letter she found hidden in laundry, written to Nora, warning her to stay concealed. Her child had seen a woman in the laundry room, with sad eyes. Robin testified after her. She admitted she knew something was wrong. That Cody said Nora was being counseled. That meetings happened in their home. That she saw Nora once, holding a baby blanket. I didn't want to lose him, Robin said. So, I ignored what I saw. She apologized to Nora. And finally, Janelle stood.
Calm.
Silent.
Certain.
Call me next, she told her lawyer. Because this story was no longer about secrecy. It was about truth, finally refusing to stay buried. Janelle took the oath, settled into the chair, adjusted the microphone, and began speaking before anyone invited her to. There was no hesitation in her voice, no warming up, no apology for the weight of what she was about to confirm. I'm here to state plainly that Nora Blake existed, she said. And I'm here to confirm that Cody Brown financially supported her for 7 years through a separate account. The temperature in the room shifted instantly. Robin closed her eyes. Christine exhaled slowly, audibly, as though she had been holding her breath for years. Cody muttered something under his breath, but his attorney silenced him with a sharp shake of the head. Let's begin at the beginning, the judge instructed. How did you first become aware of Miss Blake? I didn't know her name, Janelle replied evenly. But I knew something was wrong. She explained that the evidence didn't come through intuition or jealousy. It came through numbers, gaps in schedules, missing groceries, inconsistent water usage, fuel charges in states none of them were visiting, phone lines no one in the family used, withdrawals that didn't align with any household need. I monitored everything, she said simply, because no one else did. Janelle reached into her purse and removed a USB drive. I've compiled the records. Bank statements, grocery purchases, gas cards, phone bills, all time-stamped. The bailiff took the drive. Moments later, the overhead monitor lit up with charts, clean, organized, color-coded by year. The gallery murmured. The precision of it was undeniable. For roughly 7.5 years, Janelle continued, approximately $148,000 was redirected, hidden behind layered household expenses, disguised as ministry-related costs. You believe Mr. Brown was financially supporting Miss Blake? The judge asked. I don't believe it, Janelle said. I know it. The accounts were in her name. She had never authorized the withdrawals. She had trusted Cody with access. He had betrayed that trust. Money, Janelle reminded the court, always leaves a trail, and she had followed it all the way to the truth. When asked why she hadn't spoken sooner, Janelle didn't flinch. Because we were spiritually married, she said. Legally, I had no power. No leverí. I stayed silent because I thought I was protecting the children. But I wasn't. I was protecting him. The monitor behind Cody still glowed red with transactions. One of those withdrawals, Janelle added, occurred on the same day I begged for money to cover Savannah's dental surgery. He told me the funds were frozen, that we were broke. Silence swept the courtroom. Christine's hand flew to her mouth. Robin began to cry quietly. Janelle remained steady. This isn't heartbreak, she said.
This is fraud.
This is abuse disguised as faith. And abuse justified by scripture is still abuse. The defense attempted to undermine her. She was not legally married. Why speak now? Because spiritual marriage binds people emotionally and financially, Janelle replied. And because I refuse to let this lie remain undocumented. What do you want from this court? Not money, she said. Not revenge. I want the truth on the record.
Permanent.
Unavoidable. The judge nodded. Recess was called. Outside, reporters erupted with headlines. Inside, Cody sat motionless, simmering. And then something unexpected happened. Mary stood. I want to testify. The room froze. She didn't rush the stand. She approached it carefully, like someone walking across thin ice, aware that one wrong move could shatter everything. But she wasn't afraid of the break anymore. After taking the oath, Mary didn't look at Cody.
She didn't look at the wives.
She stared straight ahead. I was Cody's first wife, she began. Legally, spiritually,
Publicly.
and privately, I was the first to disappear. She spoke of fading quietly, of becoming background noise in her own marriage, of watching affection retreat until silence filled the space where love used to live. When Robin joined the family, Mary accepted it. She believed it was God's will, Cody's requirement. But slowly, she noticed the shift. Time vanished. Conversations cooled. She stopped being a partner and became a shadow. She discovered messages to another woman. She assumed it was a courtship. That's what Cody told her. But he was already married to Nora. What shattered her wasn't the betrayal, it was the gaslighting. The way he convinced her she was imagining things. He told her she was projecting. Bitter. Paranoid. He suggested counseling. She went. The counselor's name was Matthew. The same man who had matched Cody with Nora. He wasn't licensed. He wasn't trained. He was spiritual. And he told Mary that God wanted her silent. When manipulation is wrapped in religion, Mary said quietly, it doesn't feel like pain. It feels like failing God. She met Nora once, briefly, in a hallway. Cody said she was visiting. A cousin of someone in the church. He joked that she folded socks better than Mary did. She believed him, because believing him meant she didn't have to accept she had been replaced. The defense pressed her.
No screenshots. No proof.
I don't need to prove bruises to know I was hit, Mary replied. Sometimes silence is the only scar. She turned slightly toward the gallery. When I saw Nora here, I didn't feel anger. I felt sorrow. For the version of me that blamed myself. For the years I blamed Robin. For every time I swallowed doubt, so I wouldn't be labeled jealous. Tears came then. Quiet.
Steady.
He used her the same way he used us. And when she was no longer useful, he erased her. The judge asked if she believed Nora was a victim. I know she was, Mary said, because I was first. When she stepped down, she paused beside Nora. No words, just recognition. Decades of silence collapsing into a single glance. Then Cody took the stand. He swore the oath, lifted his chin, tried to reclaim control. But the charm was gone. He laughed when asked about spiritual marriage. Deflected, minimized, called it counseling, temporary refuge. He admitted she lived on the property, claimed it was protection. He blamed every wife for why they couldn't cope. And then he said it. She was never my wife. The words hit like a rupture. Nora covered her mouth, not in shame, but grief. The judge ordered Cody down. Nora stood instead. Then why did you tell me I was forever? She asked calmly. She returned to the stand with a phone, cracked, taped, worn. 211 voice memos. Authenticated. Orders. Instructions. Silence. Don't come upstairs. Keep the curtain shut. You're not my secret. You're my peace. The courtroom broke. Nora spoke of holidays alone, of being hidden for love, of believing silence was safety. I didn't come here to be famous, she said. I came here to exist. The judge called recess. Outside, the world watched. Inside, the truth settled, heavy, permanent. And when court reconvened 2 days later, the judge dropped a final bomb. A sealed motion, a witness withdrawal, and everything shifted, again. Robin Brown's retraction landed like a dropped plate in a silent room. The clerk read it aloud, flat, procedural, devastating. Mrs. Robin Brown had formally withdrawn her testimony. She claimed her statements were made under emotional duress. She could no longer defend them as factual. The courtroom reacted before the sentence even finished. Christine snapped her head around as if struck. Janelle muttered a single word under her breath, coward. Nora's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent, her hands folded so tightly they had gone pale. The judge continued, voice firm, almost weary. The retraction had been entered into the record. Chaos erupted. Reporters surged to their feet. Cameras clicked wildly. Christine stood up, her chair scraping loudly across the floor. That's not true, she cried out. She admitted it. She said she knew. The judge slammed the gavel. Mrs. Brown, sit down. She apologized to Nora. Christine shouted, breathless now, shaking. She said she knew. Order in the court. The judge thundered again. Christine collapsed back into her chair, gasping for air, hands trembling uncontrollably. And Cody Brown smiled. Not a broad smile. Not triumphant. Just enough. A thin, satisfied curve at the edge of his mouth, visible to anyone watching closely. There is nothing more dangerous than a guilty man who believes he's winning again. Recess was called. In the corridor, pandemonium followed. Cameras whispered. Lawyers barked into phones. A bailiff quietly confirmed what rumors were already spreading. Robin was no longer in the building. She had been escorted to a hotel on legal advice. Not ill. Not hiding. Finished. Inside a private witness room, the silence finally broke. Mary spoke. I didn't write that retraction. The words hung in the air. Janelle turned toward her slowly. Then who did? Christine answered before Mary could. Cody. That was when Nora lifted her head. He called her last night, she said softly. Everyone froze. I have the voicemail, Nora continued. She left her phone in the car once. I backed it up. Mary swallowed hard. What did he say? Nora looked up, eyes steady, voice almost detached. He said he forgave her, that if she walked it back, they could start over.
Just the two of them.
Janelle spat the words. Predator. Christine whispered, barely audible. He's stripping them away one by one. When a man begins moving people like chess pieces, the next move should be checkmate. Back in the courtroom, the judge read the retraction in silence. When she finished, she leaned forward. The court will permit the withdrawal of Mrs. Brown's statement, she said. Cody relaxed, just slightly. But the judge continued. Due to inconsistencies between her live testimony and filed evidence, the court will not strike her original statements from the record. They will remain admissible and cross-referable. Cody winced. Christine exhaled in relief. Mary nodded slowly. Nora closed her eyes once, tight, controlled, as if holding something enormous inside. Truth, once spoken, never fully disappears. Before the day ended, the prosecution made one final request, to introduce audio evidence recovered from Nora's phone. The judge consented. Session 10. The media erupted again. Robin was gone. Cody's control was slipping. And the voicemails would be played in open court. When the courtroom emptied, Nora remained seated. Across the aisle, Cody watched her. For the first time, she looked back, not with fear, not with sadness, but with something far more dangerous. Resolve. The air felt different.
Heavy. Charged.
As though everyone knew that once the tapes were played, nothing would ever return to what it was. When court resumed, the bailiff set up the sound system.
No theatrics. No spectacle.
2 microphones. A monitor. A small gray phone connected through a forensic interface. Only truth. Miss Blake, the judge asked, are these voicemails from a number belonging to Mr. Brown? Yes. Have they been altered in any way?
No.
The judge nodded to the prosecution. Proceed. Evidence can reveal lies, but sometimes it exposes something far worse. The first voicemail played.
Concerned.
Apologetic. Almost tender. The second followed, 2 days later. The tone shifted. Impatience. Subtle blame. By the third, the room understood. This wasn't worry. It was control. I know where you are, his voice said. Don't test me. Christine covered her mouth. Mary looked physically ill. The fourth voicemail stripped the mask entirely. You don't want the others to know. The silence afterward was unbearable. When asked where she had been, Nora answered calmly. I was in the emergency room. I collapsed from dehydration and malnutrition. She hadn't escaped. She had vanished. The final voicemail was played. A threat. A reminder of power. When it's your word against mine, Cody's voice said, remember, I have a TV show. You have a basement. The courtroom stopped breathing. After 20 seconds of absolute stillness, the judge spoke. These recordings will be entered as evidence of psychological intimidation, witness coercion, and threatened retaliation. Cody's attorney rose. Sit down. The judge said sharply. The court didn't just hear his voice. It recognized it. And recognition is the beginning of accountability. Nora spoke once more, not to the court, but to Cody. You said I had no voice, she said evenly. But it was your voice that buried you. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Then came the unexpected motion. An emergency witness. A name not on any list. Cynthia Blake. Nora dropped her pen. Her sister. The truth didn't knock. It broke through the wall. Cynthia testified without hesitation. She described seeing Nora years earlier, changed, controlled, diminished. She described watching her sign papers, watching doors close. She brought a journal, a letter inside. I loved him. I believed him. And now I think if I speak, no one will believe me. Signed, Nora. The courtroom fell into stone silence. Then Christine revealed another journal, hidden in the attic of the Flagstaff house. Not Nora's. Someone else's. Rachel. A roster of names. A system. Not a secret wife. A pipeline. The court shifted from civil to criminal in an instant. And when the FBI took the stand, the scope exploded. Binders. Schedules. Emotional ratings. Video diaries. One name resurfaced. Rachel.
Alive.
Hidden. Erased. When Rachel finally entered the courtroom, she did not look like a witness. She looked like a survivor of war. Her testimony was quiet. Devastating. She remembered Nora's voice.
The T.
The whisper. Don't forget your name. And then she said something no one expected. You weren't all silent. She named Christine. A napkin. Water. A single act of rebellion that saved a life. Criminal charges were filed. The system collapsed. The verdict followed. And when Nora stepped to the microphone one last time, she said only this. If someone ever tells you to stay hidden to be loved, run. She walked away.
No spotlight.
Just peace. The courthouse emptied slowly, not with relief, but with gravity. This wasn't the kind of ending that allowed people to chatter on the steps or smile for cameras. Reporters spoke in hushed tones. Producers lowered their equipment. Even the bailiffs moved differently, as if the building itself had absorbed what had just been exposed. Inside a side hallway reserved for witnesses, Nora sat alone on a wooden bench. For the first time since the trial began, no one was asking her questions.
No microphones. No lawyers.
No demands to relive what had already cost her years. Rachel sat beside her. They didn't speak at first. Some truths are too heavy for words. Some connections don't need them. When Nora finally turned, Rachel was tracing the edge of her sleeve, grounding herself, counting breaths the way therapists had taught her. Nora reached out, not urgently, not dramatically, and placed her hand over Rachel's. Rachel flinched, then relaxed. "You're real," Rachel whispered, more to herself than to Nora. "So are you," Nora answered. Across the building, federal agents sealed evidence boxes. The binders were cataloged, the flash drives logged, the journals photographed, bagged, and marked for forensic handwriting analysis. Names were entered into systems that would not forget them this time. The phrase covenant system appeared repeatedly in internal notes, not as religion, as structure, as method, as pattern. By nightfall, a protective order was issued against Cody Brown, barring contact with Nora, Rachel, Cynthia, and all named witnesses. His legal team withdrew one by one, not because they believed he was innocent, but because they understood the scale of what was coming. Civil court had cracked the door. Criminal court was about to tear it off its hinges. Christine stood outside under the fading light, arms wrapped tightly around herself. A reporter called her name. She shook her head once. Not today. Janelle stepped beside her. "You okay?" Christine nodded, then shook her head.
No.
"But I will be." Mary lingered behind them, watching Nora exit the building with Rachel and Cynthia. She had spent years believing silence was survival. Today proved otherwise. Inside a quiet office 2 floors above the courtroom, the judge removed her robe and sat alone for several minutes, staring at the bench where it had all unfolded. She had presided over hundreds of cases. Very few changed her. This one would. Because systems like the one exposed don't belong to one man alone. They survive through permission, through silence, through institutions that look away when harm is wrapped in scripture or smiles. That permission had been revoked. 2 weeks later, the first criminal indictment was unsealed. Charges included coercive control, unlawful confinement, document fraud, witness intimidation, and conspiracy. Additional names appeared, not wives, not victims, but facilitators, organizations, accounts, properties. The Arizona Purity Collective was placed under investigation. Its funding frozen. Its leadership subpoenaed. Matthew Carter's past was reopened posthumously. And Elias Reams vanished. Not quietly. Not cleanly. He was detained at an airport in Nevada, attempting to board a flight under an assumed name. In his possession, encrypted drives, burner phones, and a handwritten list that mirrored the journal almost exactly. 6 names. 2 uncrossed. 1 circled. Rachel. She was placed under federal protection the same day. So was Nora. They moved into separate residences, close enough to support each other, distant enough to heal independently. Trauma therapists met them weekly. Identity specialists helped Rachel piece together fragments of her past without forcing memory before it was ready. Some days, she remembered colors. Some days songs. Some days nothing at all. And that was okay. One evening, weeks later, Nora sat on her porch watching the sun dip below the trees. She had been offered everything: interviews, book deals, documentaries. She declined all of it. Instead, she volunteered at a women's advocacy center under her own name.
No pseudonym. No hiding.
One afternoon, a young woman approached her quietly. "I heard your voice in court," the woman said. "I didn't know it was abuse until then." Nora didn't give advice. She didn't tell her what to do. She just listened. That was how healing began. Christine sold the Flagstaff house within the month. Before you go, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button and join our YouTube family. Thank you for your support. She didn't keep a single box from the attic. Some things are not meant to be stored. They're meant to be released. Janelle started working with financial abuse survivors, teaching them how to trace money, how to follow paper trails, how to reclaim autonomy disguised as numbers. Mary disappeared from public view for a while. When she returned, it was quietly, speaking at closed-door support groups, telling women one thing over and over. You don't need proof to leave. You need permission. And you already have it. As for Cody Brown, the cameras never returned.
No interviews. No statements. No smiling explanations.
Just court filings. Just indictments. Just silence, the kind that finally worked against him. Months later, Rachel stood in front of a mirror holding a piece of paper. Her name, written in her own handwriting.
Slow.
Deliberate. Rachel Blake. She smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because something fundamental had been restored. Identity.
Choice. Voice.
And somewhere deep inside systems that thrived on obedience and erasure, a quiet fear took root. Because when one woman speaks, others remember. And when they remember, the system collapses.
The end.